What is going on, YouTube and Diablo fans? My name's Andreas, and as always, welcome back to Mana and Motherboards. So continuing the theme of our PTR testing, today we are going to be looking at the Abyss Miasma Warlock. As I've mentioned before, I like to call the Abyss Warlock the Miasma Warlock because you don't only use the skill Abyss, you use a lot of the other skills, and in particular with the changes to Miasma chains being an immediate cast as opposed to having a casting delay, it does become more of an integral part of the entire build and experience. So let's just dive right into that and sort of give you a bit of an overview of the setup of the build for this Miasma build and how we go about sort of theory crafting this character. So we'll start off with the skills quickly. So there are a couple changes to note. So what we'll do is max out Miasma Bolt, Miasma Chain, and Abyss, and with the new changes to enhance entropy, it no longer scales with hard points. Soft points can get it to its maximum radius duration breakpoints. So 4-yard radius increase and 4-second miasma duration is the maximum that you can get from enhanced entropy, and this will occur at level 20. So if you have at least 20 to plus skills from your gear, or just any soft points that get you to level 20 enhanced entropy, you will now gain the maximum benefit from the skills, and we don't have to invest a full 20 points into enhanced entropy anymore, which is quite useful and quite a boon for the Miasma Warlock now. I like to use Sigil Death with this build just to increase your AoE and your overall damage output. So I put 1 point into Lethargy, Rancor, and Death. Then in the Eldritch tree, I just put 1 into Levitation Mastery, because if you are using a Void Rune Word, then it is quite intensive in terms of dexterity investment, and that's why I like to use Levitation Mastery just to not spend as many points in dexterity. Then lastly, the Demon Tree is where we get to spend all of our leftover points, and with most of the Warlock builds in the current sort of state of the game, this is where we will sort of diversify, and everyone individually can kind of judge and put the extra skill points where they see fit or where they see best placed. So what I've done is put 1 into every skill in the demon skill tree here, and then I have put enough into demonic mastery, so that's 10 base points, so that I can have 3 demons. And the 3 demons that I am going to be using is a Defiler to consume in order to get extra magic damage, a Defiler to use to spread damage better, and a Bound Demon as our sort of meat tank and assistance for our mercenary. So I've also put 15 base points into Bind Demon just so that I can bind a champion demon, although this is somewhat unnecessary. This is just how I've set it up for the PTR testing. Alternatively, you could put as many points into Blood Oath or Consume as you want to make yourself more survivable, more tanky, and just in general harder to kill. So that is our sort of skill setup. You can really play around here. I've even thought of potentially playing with some tainted blood boil kind of thing here. We'll get into some other theory crafting at another time, but this is how I've set up my Miasma skill tree. Then moving on to the stats, I've just put enough into Dex and Strength in order to use the gear that I am using, and then the rest into Vitality just for survivability and all of that. So lastly, looking at the gear for this build, it's sort of, this is an endgame showcase. This is sort of what I picture and imagine your sort of best in-slot gear to look like. There might be some variances and changes you can do. Ultimately, what I'm using is a Void Rune Word and a Fang Knife, and this gives us the 2 to all skills, faster cast rate, and importantly, that magic skill damage to boost the magic of our Miasma Chains and Abyss. And then this is in a base with 3 to Abyss, 3 to Miasma Chain, and 3 to Enhance Entropy. That is a bit overkill. You don't need something like that. That's going to cost you 20 jar runes or whatever. You just need a solid base with 3 to Abyss. That would be great. Then for the helm, I'm using Hull Warden's Will, the new Warlock Death Mask. That with the, I can't remember what the stone is called right now. Not Protector's Stone. It is the Guardian's Light. So that will give us that extra minus to enemy magic resistance and the magic skill damage, as well as MF and some other nice stats. So that's what we have socketed in our Hull Warden's Will. Next we have Enigma. This just helps us to position ourselves with our Miasma Chains as best as possible, and just give us that mobility, those extra skills, and just all the other good stuff that Enigma provides. It's really useful, at least for the Miasma Chain portion of this build. Then for our amulet, you could use any plus to Warlock skills amulet here, maybe even one with a bit of faster cast rate so that you can change up your gear a little bit. Ultimately, you just want skills here, and that is why we're using a Mars Kaleidoscope. Then an Oz Dual Mephistos with an armor rune, that is to get that cast rate, Warlock skills, and that minus to enemy magic resistance, which is very important for this build. You could go with Arax for your bolt. I personally think that Geeds provides a little bit more utility in terms of the other stats that it provides, as well as just a bit more defense. And that minus to 7 enemy magic resistance, I think, more than makes up for that one skill that you're missing out from Arachnid's Mesh. Then for our gloves, we're using Trangles for the cold res, and of course that faster cast rate. A 1 to chaos skill Wraith Step. We are then using a Sling Ring for that cast rate and minus to magic resistance on our enemies. And that plus to Town Portal and Magic Find is also a nice sort of addition on that ring. And then a Opal Vein Ring with 5 to magic skill damage as our secondary ring. For our inventory, we just have an Annie and a Torch, and then Chaos Skillers, as well as a Black Cleft Sundered Charm, just to sunder any magic immunities. This is sort of overkill because most areas of the game don't have any magic immune monsters, and magic immunes are very difficult to sort of encounter. So, or they're very rarely encountered. So this isn't completely necessary. It just helps out a little bit. If you do get the renewed version, there are some bonuses to be had there. Then we just have some 5 Auras small charms just to fill out the inventory and complete it there. On our offhand, Call to Arms Spirit, the sort of obligatory setup that everyone will be running there. And then quickly looking at our Mercenary, we're just having that sort of typical Cure setup, which is a Prayer Mercenary with the Cure Helm, Insight to manage our mana a bit better because this is a very mana intensive build, and then we have Chains of Honor as the chest armor there. So what we're going to do quickly now is just jump into a little bit of gameplay. What I'm going to do is first start off with Players 1, just to give you a sort of introductory feel to how the build operates. I'm also going to just terrorize Act 4 here so that we can get sort of the fullest experience with heralds and all of that. So yeah, we're just going to buff up with our battle command, battle war cry, what is it, battle command and battle orders, and then we're going to summon our defilers and consume one of them. We have our bound demon. It's just a random champ bound demon just to be a bit of an extra tank, and then we are going to go off, cast our chains and our abyss, and as you can see, this build does a ton of damage, at least on players 1. So we'll get into the players 8 difficulty just now, and as you will see, the damage does drop off somewhat when we do up the ante and up the difficulty to players 8. So I love the playstyle of this build. You can use your Sigil Death, cast your Abyss to suck everyone in, and then just cast your Chains with that reworked mechanic that allows it to be cast with no delay. And it just adds a very dynamic feel to the build, and it just plays a lot more fluidly now, and I'm really enjoying the play style. I will say that the Abyss build is lacking a little bit behind the Fire Warlock in its endgame sort of configuration and setup, and it may be doing a little better than Echoing Strike potentially, and there is of course that Tainted build, which is kind of the top dog at the moment for the Warlock. So I don't know, you could kind of say that this sits middle of the pack, but at the same time it does have a lot of appealing attributes, such as its visual splendor on the screen. It looks fantastic, it plays so fantastically, it really feels much more crafted and nuanced than many of the other Warlock builds, and I think just from the perspective of how it plays, it's one of my favorite Warlock builds by far. I mean, I would quite easily say it is pretty much my favorite, even though it is not quite as strong as some of the others. So after we kill the Grand Vizier over here, we will then switch it up to Players 8, so that you can get a bit more of a feel of Players 8. So we've already taken out 2 Heralds. As you can see, the Heralds are downed relatively quickly. We've got a nice mix between good AoE and good single target with this build. It's another part of the build that I really enjoy. So we're just going to bump this up to Players 8 quickly, and we are in Terrorized Act 4. I'm just quickly going to buff up again with my Battle Orders and Battle Command, and then summon my Defilers and consume one for that extra magic damage. And then we can cast out a bunch of chains here, cast Abyss, cast our Sigil Death, and there we go. So as you can see, with the Players 8 difficulty stepped up now, monsters do take a fair while longer to kill, but this build still does very well on Players 8. I'm not quite sure if I would put it on par with the Fire build. I would say it's a little bit behind, but there are some benefits with this, with much less immunities found in the wild compared to Fire, and it's just different. It's a different playstyle. It's a lot more instantaneous than Fire. Fire has a big delay mechanic built into the build, and this, although this has delay, the whole build just plays a lot more fluidly and feels better in general, at least in my opinion. I still haven't sort of theory crafted the ultimate best in slot endgame sort of configuration for this build, but even in its current state, I think it is doing fairly well. You could of course swap out Obsession instead of Void. I think that is a viable alternative in order to have better survivability and just better utility all around. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to consume that. We're going to lay down a bunch of our chains, lay down our Abyss. So at least on Diablo, this build does kill him a little bit slower than Fire, I would say, but not all that much. So I think that sort of wraps it up for the Miasma build and the Miasma Warlock here. Like I mentioned, I love how it plays. I think it is in quite a good spot at the moment. I think if they don't touch this build at all, I think it would be left in quite a good spot. I love the changes that they've made to Miasma chains and being able to just cast them out instantaneously with that 125 FCR and then teleport around in order to move them where you need. It's just a really visually awesome mechanic, and I just enjoy this build so much with that change that they've introduced. Also, that change to enhance entropy is very welcome, and I think it has allowed a lot more diversity and freedom into the Miasma build. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments below, what you think of the Miasma build compared to the Blood Boil, Echoing Strike, Fire Warlock, Tainted Warlock, all of that sort of stuff. Please let me know your thoughts. We do have a new membership program on the channel, so if you'd like to become a member for some member-only content and sort of perks, then definitely consider that. If not, if you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate that. Any views, likes, shares, all that good stuff is always appreciated. And we'll catch you again soon for some more Mana and Motherboards. Cheers.